So, but as I was saying, for the movie, I'm hoping for good fight scenes at least. Now, as for the human storyline, let's see. Well, they can still utilize that terrorist group where they want to unleash the monsters, but I felt like they really screwed up with them in the last movie. Their whole motivation seems flimsy as heck. So, if they're gonna utilize their characters again in the next movie, Godzilla vs.
I
Kong,
heard they're gonna be. Well, I don't know about the terrorist group, but the other ones from Monarch will be back in this movie. You know, the girl, the guy, and Kyle Chandler's character, Millie Bobby Brown's character.
yeah, the Screaming Girl,
Yeah, they're both back in Godzilla vs Kong,
yeah,
along probably with the other people from Monarch.
yeah, starting to remind me of Kim Basinger from Batman 1989. All she did was scream. Seems like all I know her is by her screaming all the time.
Uh,
So,
I really don't remember her screaming too much, but yeah, I remember that scream when she screamed in front of King Ghidorah.
yeah,
I remember that.
so my problem is the humans were flimsy as heck, but of course some might argue and say, well, this is a monster movie and the humans are not really that important. Yes, okay, I could go with that to a certain point. But the problem is they were focusing on the humans a little too much, and when you do that, you got to do something with them. And I didn't really like the motivations. I thought it was kind of flimsy to downright boring at times, and then sometimes just downright stupid. Like the lady who invented that sonic, whatever type of device that communicates with the monsters, like sonar, whatever it is. To a certain degree, I thought it was dumb in a certain way. Maybe, maybe not. I'm not sure. And also another thing that, well, I thought they were going to do this with Godzilla King of the Monsters, was the idea of making Godzilla into a hero, which I never liked that. I always thought that was dumb. I never liked it when the Japanese did it a little bit.
Yeah, well, I
Because Godzilla is
monster.
he's a giant monster walking over a city filled with ants. Now it'll be like any people just walking over an anthill. I mean, they're not much to us.
Mm.
Why are we gonna go and be friends with them unless we're gonna study them? There are those people who like those things. But Godzilla, in my opinion, has no reason to like humanity or want to protect humanity.
Yeah, he's a monster. He's
If anything, Godzilla is just defending his territory because that's where he lives. It's his yard, it's his neighborhood and stuff like that. He lives on. He can live and sleep under the ocean, but I'm talking about the Japanese one. In Japan, that's his territory. He's the alpha monster of his territory. He defends the territory. Now, I remember they said a stupid line in the Godzilla 2000s where they said, "Oh, why does Godzilla keep protecting us? He's not protecting you. He's protecting his turf."
yeah, he's protecting his turf. Yes, he's
Godzilla is an alpha male
he's
or
just
alpha creature, alpha monster, whatever you're going to. Don't really want to go alpha dog, but he's pretty much an alpha. He defends his territory. He's a territorial monster. And what do territorial monsters do? They defend their territory, they patrol their territory, and they defend their territory against other monsters that intrude on their territory. So, Godzilla will most likely fight King Kong because he's invading in his territory. That's what monsters do. Because this is really based on animals, real life animals. They're territorial animals that will fight and defend their territory to the death most of the time to make sure there's no one intruding in their territory.
what about King Kong? Will he do the same?
Well, if anything,
Well, anything he got if Godzilla showed up on Skull Island, will King Kong defend his turf?
he's an alpha.
Mm.
So of course he'll defend his kingdom, like he defended his kingdom in that movie Skull Island, or any King Kong movie. He's the king of his realm. He's an alpha male. That's his territory. So of course he's going to defend it.
Mm.
Um, the humans, they just get in the way. That's all they really do in these movies. So Kong is
Why I thought the humans when the original Godzilla vs King Kong movie was more better done than a few other ones. You know, like the guy invented that wire, and then they end up using that wire to lift King Kong in the air with those balloons to fly him towards Godzilla. You know, they used the humans pretty well there.
yeah, they were able to use the humans better in the original movie. Um, I don't know what they're doing in the new one. It doesn't really make any sense. I could watch Godzilla King of the Monsters again, but I really don't want to because the humans were annoying as heck.
Mm.
As for the family, and when I say King of the Monsters, I'm talking about the American version, not the original 1954 movie starring Raymond Burr. That movie is actually better, and in my opinion, far superior than the American one today.
Mm.
So for Godzilla King of the Monsters 2019, I think it was.
Yeah, it was 2019. It came out.
So I didn't really like the family that they had in the movie. They were somewhat annoying, and I didn't really get what they were dealing. I didn't really get them too much. Like, okay, so they lost the kid in the
2014 battle.
in the last movie, which they show in the very beginning of this movie. And then for some reason, she decides, oh, to unleash the monsters upon the world. Kind of like, oh, screw it all type of thing. I don't know. I just find that whole motivation somewhat flimsy as hell. You know, it would make more sense to me that she would want to see all the monsters die. Sort of an act of vengeance. I've seen them do this at least twice, or if not 3 times, in the Japanese movies.
Mm.
Where they have a character who lost somebody or suffered some sort of tragic loss, and they're trying to kill Godzilla with everything they have.
Someone like Bryan Cranston, the 2014 movie's character.
Oh, he was just trying to figure out what the heck was going on, why his wife died.
Oh.
But yeah, he would have been perfect for that role if, like, we found out Godzilla was responsible for the death of his wife, and he becomes this hardcore survivalist / hunter, arming himself with all sorts of weapons, poisons, chemicals, doing everything he can to study Godzilla and all of his attacks, becoming that hardcore hunter of Godzilla. Yeah, that would have been better for his character if they'd done that. Yeah, Bryan Cranston would have been excellent in that role. He would have been the Captain Ahab.
Mm.
And I know they kind of did that a couple of times with the Godzilla stuff. Like I said, I think they've done that twice and 3 times. Well, actually 3 times altogether. I don't know, I can't remember it all. I know they did it like, I think twice in the Japanese movies and 1 time in a book I read. This Half-Century War. That one that goes like the beginning of a lot of stuff. From the early 1950s all the way to the future. The book's called The Half-Century War, Godzilla.
Mm.
Pretty good book. So, anyway, so back to what I was saying. Godzilla's a territorial monster. King Kong's a territorial monster. So what happens when 2 territorial monsters meet each other? They're going to fight each other to the death. Or at least until one monster decides it's not worth fighting no more. That's usually what happens. One animal will back down and they'll go back to whatever territory they can fall back to. It's usually what animals do after they take a good beating. But in the meantime, hopefully we'll get some good fight scenes out of the 2 at least. Like I want to see something, I don't know, crazy happen. Like I want to see Kong utilizing the buildings around them when they're fighting in the city. I want to see military come up with some good strategies to try to like trap the monsters. Or try to set up booby traps or whatever. Try something, you know, something inventive. Get creative with this. Because I know they did this even in the original Japanese movies. The military were creative. They came up with a special trap to get Godzilla fall into a pit and then drop a whole bunch of bombs and missiles on top of him, hoping to kill him or at least trap him in there. But unfortunately, Godzilla can climb, so at least the Japanese military were creative. So hopefully for the new movie, they can portray the American military to be just as creative. To come up with ways to try and stop them or at least imprison them for the moment. So all this stuff could be really exciting if they really know how to use it.
And hopefully, I'm hoping this will be a good movie.
Yeah. So as for the humans, Well, it depends. I really don't want to see that family again. I just find them annoying as heck, and I really don't care if they get back together or what. So,
Well, they cut off the mother in the last one. It's just the daughter and her father.
yeah, so I really don't care to see them come back again. I
But
want to see something more action packed, like, I don't know, it's like maybe a scientist that's been studying all the monsters, like John Goodman's character from Skull Island. I'd say he was a great character until
yeah,
they go and kill him off.
yeah, from the movie Kong Skull Island, the 2017 movie.
I'd say they seem to have a strange pattern with these things. They have this scientist expert who's like studying these things for a long time, and then just when we're really getting to know these characters and liking the character, they go and kill them off.
Yeah, the Kong Skull Island was a good movie. Monster fans will like.
Skull Island, yeah, I like Kong Skull Island. For one thing, it was actually different. They weren't remaking it for the 1 billionth time. I'm more of a Godzilla fan, but when it comes to King Kong, the only movie I really like would be the original 1933 King Kong movie. I still enjoy watching that. Oh, and of course, I do like Kong Skull Island because I actually did something different with them. Yes, I do know about the sequels of Son of Kong, Mighty Joe Young, and then later on Disney made a remake called Mighty Joe Young, which was okay. I haven't seen it in a long time. I don't know if that's on Disney Plus. I'll check it out. Um, let's see. And I think they also made another movie called King Kong Lives. I haven't seen it, but I remember hearing.
Yeah, I
about
heard about that, but I never saw it.
I remember seeing previews of it.
And there's Godzilla vs. King Kong, the Quaso event.
Yeah, but aside from that, as far as I know, they didn't really do much with King Kong, except way back when, back in the 1930s, they made Son of Kong, and then later on Mighty Joe Young, and then after that they just made remake after remake.
Yeah, I've seen the 1933 one, the original one, but I haven't seen the sequels. I was thinking about taking a look at the 1970s King Kong, the 1976 remake of King Kong, but I have to look for that one. And I seen 2005 King Kong movie directed by Peter Jackson. I sat down and watched that one. That was 3 hours too, the longest one out of all of them.
That was actually a 3-hour movie.
Yeah, it's 3 hours, and they have an extended cut too that makes it even longer. I haven't seen the extended cut yet, but I seen the 3-hour theatrical cut.
The theatrical cut is 3 hours, and there's an extended version to this.
Yeah.
Hey. Well,
I don't know how long's the extended cut.
like I said, the only version I like is the original 1933 version.
Yeah, that was like
I can still have fun
a
watching
breakthrough in film.
I can still enjoy watching that movie with all the stuff they did in that. For the 2005 King Kong movie, directed by Peter Jackson, in my opinion, he should have directed The Hobbit first. King Kong, I saw the movie and I really didn't care for it. I really didn't like it.
Well, I basically watched it for the monsters. I just watched it for the monsters.
The monster scenes were okay.
You know, like there's one fight between Godzilla. I keep saying Godzilla. I mean King Kong versus the Tyrannosaurus Rex. There was one fight scene in that movie in the jungle in the middle of the movie, the second hour. There was one fight scene between them.
It was okay, but
I remember it because there was a fight scene in the original movie, the 1933 movie, between the T-Rex and King Kong. There was a fight scene in that one.
So I remember, yeah, there was a fight scene with the T-Rex. I think there was 2 of them in the movie. I can't remember, and I really don't feel like watching that movie again. I really didn't care for it. The monster scenes, they were okay, and I remember one guy getting eaten by a giant slug or whatever, and fighting giant insects.
And then one from the long necks, the
Brontosauruses.
Yeah, the Brontosauruses, them wanting it as a herd in the one scene of the movie.
Which I thought that was kind of silly, despite everything that happened. I thought that was like the silliest scene in the whole movie. I mean, these monsters are big and most likely fast, and these people manage to keep up with them.
Yeah,
and I know they're just running for their lives and stuff, but I mean, I just find it kind of ridiculous that they're still alive in there.
Yeah, well, I did see some of them get squashed and killed in there.
Yeah, people did die, but I mean, you're getting trampled by these giant monsters or giant dinosaurs. there's no way out of there. I don't know. I just didn't care for that. Um, and also, one of the things that really bugs me about the whole thing, no pun intended, dealing considering what they dealt with in that island and stuff, um, is the very idea of portraying the monster as some sort of misguided hero slash basically over too much sympathy, or at least in my opinion, too much sympathy for the monster. Um,
Sympathetic.
yeah, making him too sympathetic. I get kind of annoyed with that. That's why I'm not much of a Kong fan. I'm more of a Godzilla fan. At least Godzilla. My favorite part of any Godzilla movie is when the fairies, who are basically like the ambassadors for Mothra, they were able to translate what the monsters were saying when the monsters were talking to Mothra and Rodan. And I remember Godzilla doesn't give a darn about the human race. And I remember him going on, and I still remember that funny scene where the fairies say, you know, Godzilla, what terrible language.
The fairies. Oh, I see now, and I think I did.
And I just thought that was so funny. Godzilla's cussing in his own language. Cussing
Yeah,
towards the
I remember
human.
that. I think I seen that.
Yeah, I thought that was so funny.
I think that was King Godzilla versus King Ghidorah, or the three-headed monster.
Yeah, that was called the Three-Headed Monster. Or I would call it Godzilla versus the Three-Headed Monster. Another Godzilla versus King Ghidorah movie. A lot of them.
Yeah, when the fairies said such language Godzilla's using.
I think probably the third movie. There's the Three-Headed Monster, and then the next movie was Godzilla versus Monster Zero, and then later on when they did the Hensai era, there's Godzilla versus King Ghidorah, in which they do that whole time travel bit, and then later on he gets his head chopped off, and then he turns into Mecha Godzilla, or not Mecha Godzilla, Mecha King Ghidorah. Great stuff. So.
Yeah, so.
Anyway, for King Kong, the 2005 movie, I really didn't care for it. I didn't like the oversympathy thing they keep playing with King Kong.
Until they finally did something different. The 2017 movie, Kong Skull Island.
Yeah, now I understand he was sympathetic in Kong Skull Island, but at least it wasn't overdone.
Yeah, I kind of like what the director did in that movie.
I mean, at least in that one, I felt more of a survival situation.
Yeah, defending his turf against the squall.
Now, some people may not like Kong Skull Island because, the whole thing of what they did with I forgot the commander's name, played by Sam Jackson in the film. Me, I took it real fast. He's pretty much the Captain Ahab of the whole military squad. And also the harshness of what he went through of Vietnam and things like that, and regretting that the war's being stopped. He wants to keep going, things like that. Yeah, I got all that stuff. So I'd say I got some good character stuff with him. But some people say, oh, they want character development. You have to understand, this is a monster movie. If anyone's going to get character development, it's the monsters.
Yeah.
That's the important thing, is the monsters. Now, I would say they had some good steady characters in the film, like John C. Reilly. Now, I would say this is going on a little too long. I'm just going to say I like Kong Skull Island. I would say the human characters were decent. And the way they treat that was the survival situation of the characters. And they're all basically military men among, I think one like survival guide and a photographer, and one survivor who's been on there since World War II. And I'm trying to remember everybody. Most of them were all military guys, along with a photographer and a survival guide of sorts. Oh, and the science people too. I forgot them. The science people, along with the John Goodman, who's the monster expert, part of their monarch. So I would say they treat the humans great in the Kong Skull Island movie. At least I can actually pay attention and understand and get what they're coming from, get where they're coming from. I understand the film. At least these human characters I can get into and actually like and follow a little bit.
Yeah, the characters in Godzilla 2014 were kind of bland.
Warm, you could keep the movie warm just until the monsters show up. Because if anything, as humans should be portrayed in monster movies, is they're just warming it up for the monsters to show up. That way you build up all the anticipation for the monsters to show up and do what they're going to do. Now that's where the real entertainment factor comes in, is because that's what the humans should be doing, like building up the terrifying, the mystery, how big they are, how dangerous they are and stuff like that. And then when they finally show up, that's where all that stuff is supposed to work. And then also make them more likable, like, understandable. I would say I found the soldiers likable to a point. Now, some people didn't really care for the soldiers, no character and stuff like that. I don't know, I thought some of them were pretty realistic to a point, because some people really are like that. Like I've heard guys in the military really are like that sometimes. You always have that one guy who has no emotions whatsoever, and he just deals with whatever shit comes his way. Excuse my language. So, I would say that was pretty realistic. My problem with Godzilla movies is they don't really do that.
Yeah, the 2014 and the 2019 one.
The problem with the 2014 one is they didn't really do much with the humans at all. They just established a family that really goes nowhere. One, you have the wife who dies, okay, then you have the husband who's like trying to find what happened. And then just as you're following this character, because he's really good at it, the actor does his job well enough that gets you interested in following him, and then they go and kill him off. And then now we're just following his son, who are just boring as heck, because he's just wandering around until he winds up in the military and actually does something. And even then, it's kind of like bland and boring in a way. So I found the movie kind of boring in places, because it seems like they didn't do much. It was kind of like stretching it. Some people like this sort of thing, the whole tension building, but I don't really care for it. I mean, in my opinion, monster movies most of the time should be treated like action movies.
Yeah, they should be action movies.
I can understand a time to calm down, take a breath, and then you build up to the next action scene. Okay, that's how it should be. Especially if you're going to have an action scene, it should be intense as heck, and then when it's over, you're right there, like exhausted after that. Okay, you need time to breathe. Okay, calm down a little bit, and then you build up to the next action scene. Or if anything, for monster movies, the next scare, the next intense scene. You build up to the next thing, calm down, and then you go right back into it again. And I would say the best way, in my opinion, to start any monster movie is, full blast, action-packed, or horrific. It depends on what you want to do. You want to make it more horror, or you might make it more action-packed. Now, as for another thing, comedy's fine as long as it's utilized right. Kong had a very unusual type of thing. It seems to me everybody's trying to be like Marvel, but that's a whole other issue. So, but I'd say for monster movies, back to subject, since I got way off subject, Godzilla vs. Kong. I just want a good fight scene, and for the humans, I would take out whatever they had with the humans from the last movie, just throw it all out, and just make it where you have the military and maybe some government officials dealing with this terrorist group, and their plan is to basically unleash the monsters, which ultimately failed, which retcons the last movie, and they try to take control of Kong and try to have him unleashed. But the way he comes out, he runs into Godzilla, which he's natural territorial creature. They end up fighting each other. And terrorists go crazy, and they're like trying to utilize the monsters as a apocalyptic thing, want to unleash monsters and destroy all humanity because they're crazy psychotic terrorists that think humanity should be destroyed for whatever reason.
Mm.
Get creative about it. So that's all I can say
But
about
what do you think about Monarch and the Godzilla movies and the Monster Universe movies?
Monarch. I think they're okay. I feel like they could do a little bit more with them.
Yeah, you think you can do better with them?
Yeah, it's an organization that studies creatures and things like that. So I feel like they could do so much more with them, but I feel like they're lacking in places. Like, okay, I could understand if they're just getting started in the earlier movies, but I feel like they could do more with them. I don't know, like, I would say the best representation of Monarch as they're trying to set up would be Hellboy, the Bureau of Paranormal Research and Defense. I would say that is what Monarch should be. Something like that. Now, if they can do that with that, then I say they're off to a great start.
Okay, so that's all speculation for Godzilla vs. Kong. Thanks for watching the video.